Hello everyone, Arun Vanagopal of WNYC here. It's my pleasure to introduce the Center for Traditional Music and Dances series, Beat of the Boroughs, NYC Online. This online series features over 50 of New York's leading traditional instrumentalists, dancers, singers, poets, and more. From Mongolia to Haiti, Colombia to the Gambia, among many others, they remind us how the strength of our country lies in its embrace of diversity and immigration. We want to celebrate these remarkable members of the New York community in these challenging times. So please enjoy these 50 programs, share them with your friends, and spread the word. Enjoy the
Hi, everyone. It's so good to see you. I see, ahora sí, now we're cooking. You see, we just wanted to make sure that we caught your attention. We are, in fact, here behind the screens. It is my pleasure to be here, everyone. Again, my name is Julia Luisa Gutierrez-Rivera. I am a first-generation NuyoRican, second-generation Bomba and Plena practitioners. I am dialing in today from the Bronx, El Bronx, Nueva York, a place that I call my home, one of many homes. And it's so great to be joined on the streams with two friends, brothers, collaborators, and amazing musicians to just talk a little bit about our experiences and what we love about some of our cultural practices from Puerto Rico. I want to bring Matthew on to tell us himself.
Thank you, Julia. I'm Nelson Mateo González, or Matthew, second generation NuyoRican, also, if I'm not mistaken, third generation Plenero Bombero, here from the South Bronx, like Julia. Just here just to express ourselves and just give us a little bit of our story and how we collaborate and how we push our traditions in New York City. Ahora, para pasarlo, mi hermano Víctor Pablo.
Gracias, Mateo. All right, everybody. How's everybody doing? Keeping safe with the masks on. I'm out on the streets. My name is Víctor Pablo Gutierrez-Rivera. I'm Puerto Rican, full-blooded, bred, born and raised in the island. Half raised in San Juan, half raised in Carolina. And now I call New York home. I've been calling New York City my home for 6 years now. Living in Brooklyn. And I'm a professional musician. I also play all sorts of different types of music, and that's pretty much my job here in the city, just doing whatever it takes and whatever kind of music it takes, and dedicating more and more time to our own music and to our own cultural practices, which is something I have you guys to thank for.
Super dope. I mean, we'll make sure to drop in some of our social media handles in the chat, both on the webinar as well as on the Facebook, so that you can get connected with us. Let us know where you're tuning in from. If you're dialing in, tuning in from the city, from New York City, amazing. If you're dialing in or tuning in from other places in the world, even better. Let us know para que se haga sentir la presencia. So we are here to share again, like I said, a little bit about what one of the particular cultural practices that come from the island of Puerto Rico, the island of King. This cultural practice, this lifestyle, is called Bomba, B-O-M-B-A, from Puerto Rico. It happens to be one of, or actually our oldest living tradition from the islands, dating back to about 450 years old. And it is our direct connection to our African ancestry. It is music that came to fruition on the island of Puerto Rico through the travesty of enslavement of people, of expressions of ideas, right? And while those folks on the island were being held against their will, you know, unfortunately, they tapped into their bloodline of resiliency to express themselves through this music, through this drumming, through this dance. So a session of resistance, of rebellion, specifically this idea of cimarronaje, maroon-based efforts, maroon-based philosophy, where you can channel your individual voice, you can channel community liberation through the idea of singing, dance, and percussion. So with that, we can go a little bit in greater of some of the particularities of Bomba, but before we do that, we wanted to be able to make sure that you get a sense of just an overview of this amazing genre, this amazing lifestyle and practice. So I'm going to mute myself so I can screen share. Mateo, Victor, you can add and fill in as I do so, please.
All right, everybody. So, with a little bit you were able to see and hear, so you were able to see a little bit of Holandés. That's one of the rhythms that we play, the 5 basic rhythms in Bomba, and also Seis Corrido. That's another rhythm that we play on the part of Loíza, the most maroon part of the island that we have. That is to say that is the most African to our culture. Also, the other rhythms that we couldn't see from earlier is Sika, Gwembe, and Juba. Okay, so like you were just hearing, these are just the sounds of our rhythms, and these are the most common, the most popular rhythms that you're gonna hear on the island and throughout the diaspora. So that's just a little snippet of what we do. Okay.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Matthew, for jumping in. We're definitely trying to multitask, as we say in Spanglish, doing a couple of different things at the same time. So I do appreciate you bearing with us. What you did not see, fortunately for you, you will hear in the next couple of songs that we have coming at you, because those are the rhythms that will be presented to you shortly. I want to give a quick shout out to the folks that are featured on the film on these recordings with us as well. In addition to Nelson Mateo González playing the primo drum, which is the drum that responds to the dancer when he or she is in a movement expression that's completely improvised, and Víctor Pablo, who played drum, squat, and you sang a little something, right? You sang a little something. You'll be able to see that in a little bit.
I'm multitasking too.
Multitasking, always, yes. Victor right now is actually about to do a performance in a little bit. Is that correct?
Yeah, like right as soon as we hang up, I gotta go play.
Dope, dope, very
But
good.
that's the hustle.
Yeah. And then also on the video with us is Camilo Molina Gaetán, another second generation NuyoRican and Bomba practitioner, as well as a masterful percussionist in various different genres and expressions. And last but not least, Juan Gerena, who is, I think he's the third generation, right? Third generation NuyoRican and a first generation bombero. So we're really glad to have had that time with them in the studio. And just a shout out to them who are not with us on the stream, but their love and their presence is always felt. So just kind of really quickly queuing into the next song. The first video we did was an overview of the 5 core family of rhythms that Matthew spoke to you about. Now the second video is just kind of a presentation of one of the most known bomba songs in the traditional repertoire, and in the most commonly played rhythm across the island, across the different regional styles, and throughout the diaspora. This is a rhythm called Sica, S-I-C-A, and I will leave it to Matthew so that he can explain the context of that as I go off screen and start screen sharing. Hopefully you can see this from the very beginning. So.
All right, while Julia's getting the video, just a little bit about the song Bambula. So the word Bambula itself is to remember. We're remembering our ancestors, our loved ones, and these are memories that we take to ourselves and we put into our hearts to say Bambula. And this is the remembrance, because the barril itself, especially the buleador, which is the fundamental drum that holds down the timing, we are remembering all of our elders that have played this music before us, before Julia, before Victor, before Camilo and Juan. We are fought to keep this music alive. So this is the message that we're sending, and this is what the song is telling everybody in the song, is to always remember where we come from and how we started. And this is really, really important, just to have that sense of pride and also that sense of connection, and how we have to treasure this music, especially this culture, the Afro-Puerto Rican culture that we have here today. So this is really a special song. Is a traditional song that we have that everybody knows it throughout the island. So hopefully you guys will enjoy. Bambula, siga magonde, bambula, bambula, siga magonde, ay, vamos a bailarlo, also, I hope you guys like that. And I hope you could feel that connection, especially when Julia came out to dance, because it's always a pleasure for me to always have this dialogue between Julia and myself while she's dancing and while I'm drumming. And imagine this goes for already a few years, right, Julia? We've
For
been
more
doing.
than a few years. I think that you've been my main subidor, my primo player. Again, primo and subidor is that lead drum that responds musically to what the dancer is doing with his or her body. I think you've been for over a decade now. So more than a few years. And so just to give a little bit of context again to the rhythm sika, again, as I mentioned, it's one of the oldest rhythms, most widely, well, not oldest rhythms, but it's most widely practiced across the island. And the intention of that particular rhythm is meant to evoke a sense of uprising. The word literally stands to the word of Sika literally means to rise up, to stand up. So it is a call to action, a sense of urgency. Obviously, if we're thinking about 450 years ago, that carried a specific intention, right? But if we're thinking in these current contexts, there's always something that compels you to move, to act, an urgency to rise up. And so the rhythm in and of itself is very strong. It is very sharp, not only in the type of playing that it is, but also in the type of dancing, hopefully, that you were able to appreciate. So that, again, is the song called Bambula. If you look up Bambula on YouTube, you will see a lot of different references, mainly because, again, it is a most commonly played song, one of the most commonly played songs in the Bomba repertoire. But also the concept in and of itself of Bambula is the key driving force behind Bomba practice. That means the idea of re-remembrance, of recentering yourself into the ancestral knowledge, the spiritual knowledge of our elders and those that came before us, so that we know where we come from and then can guide ourselves to where we should be going. I see that we have a question in the chat, and it says, can you discuss a little bit more about the relationship as a dancer and a drummer? It's both for Julia Mateo, and I'm going to throw in Víctor también si él quiere tirarse sus 2 o 3 centavitos. But yeah, exacto. So the relationship between the dancer and drummer, I mean, it's a conversation. It's a musical conversation that happens, right? The dancer, in this context, there's a set space and a time when the dancer is going to come out to manifest him or herself. But just, I want to underscore that the dance practice of Bomba is completely improvised, and it is meant to act as a space of catharsis, right? For you to be able to use your body to express yourself in ways that you probably ancestrally were not able to do so with your mouth, right? Through just your use of your own language, or being able to openly communicate certain messages that you did not have the liberty to do, right? So that's transferred that type of verbal communication to nonverbal communication through the body, right? Movement, vocabulary, but also tapping into more of a spiritual sense of your grounding, right? And of your essence. Messages are meant to be received, right? And so if a dancer is communicating with his or her body non-verbally with the piquetes, with the movements, that message is going to be picked up by the primo, by the subidor. And I'm going to let Matthew take that part, right?
Okay, thank you, Julia. But also, that word, I'm going to rephrase that word that Julia used before, piquetes. Piquetes are the improvisational steps that we use in Bomba. So how Julia was saying, that non-verbal communication that we have, also it's sending some kind of code, like how I like to use this example Julia uses, like Morse code, like something like that. But also that communication of how are we feeling in that moment? How are we feeling for the day? How are we going to express ourselves? Did we have a hard day at work? Or did we have a wonderful day? Or was it a sad day? And all of those expressions that we put, especially in Bomba, are going to be felt and also just seen. Even though Julia and I are not talking verbally, because the expressions of how she throws the skirt or how she moves her hand is something really, really important and really big, because you actually see these different expressions happening all at the same time. So that between the dancer and drummer is really, really strong, and is you can't really explain at the moment how we both feel, because it's something on a whole nother level that only the universe can really understand of what's going on.
But you know what? To add on to what Julia and Mateo said, can you understand me fine?
Yes.
You know, I would even push it to go a little even beyond non-verbal communication, because there is sort of a language, even though there's not words, but there is definitely a language, and there's definitely correlations between movements and between what do you want to call it in English, Mateo? Slaps, tones, the hits of the drum. That there's definitely, you know, a language that is understood going on. Even to go to, like, there's definitely cultures that have developed
musical language.
literal languages
It's
with
a
their
musical
drums.
language.
Yeah, that they can communicate
language.
stuff across like so much, you know, so much distance just by the way they play their drums. So it even though it's nonverbal, it's pretty close to verbal communication as we know it. After everything is said and done, which is fascinating to me.
It's absolutely a very profound experience. You will see dancers that have number of years of experience dancing bomba, that they engage with their body, with their movements different for one primo player than from another, right? Because like with any type of conversation, with any type of relationship, your interaction really is based off of, right, that energy flow, that chemistry, that response that you are being given and that you are offering. So it is definitely very nuanced, and it is really amazing to sit back and watch, right? If you're just kind of like appreciating the interaction between dancer and drummer. So that again was Bombasica. The song was Bambula, and it speaks to this idea of rising up. So now we want to transition really quickly. And again, I'm going to ask a filler here. I'm going to ask my brothers to help me out, help a sister out as I do the screen share. We're going to show a video of a song that really kind of tries to connect a little bit more or make explicit more this idea of the spiritual element, the spiritual aspect. With that, I'm gonna transition so that he can.
All right, thank you, Julia, again. So the next song that Julia is gonna show is called Seviana. Okay, Seviana. So we think to ourselves, who is Seviana? And this particular song is also written by her truly, Julia Gutierrez, you know, and I know it's a little bit more of a deeper conversation for her because she wrote it, and it's a personal meaning of why she wrote this song. And Seviana is mostly talks about almost about the goddess of the water, or in the Yoruba religion talks about Yemaya, right? So the she covers most of the water, because what is mostly around the earth, the water. So she covers almost around, if I'm not mistaken, it's 85% of the world, and which is the water, the body of water, and how she embraces the water, the ocean, for herself. Why she has this specific connection with the water, and how she needs Sevillana to guide her in her life. So it's like the waves. You know how you just go with the flow? That's the waves actually moving either of us, either myself, Victor, Julia. We're going with the waves. We're going with the motions. We're going at the moment. We're just flowing to see in our process and in our world what is next, what obstacles we might come through, what tests might be coming for us, you know, what new experiences, and also just in life, what new experiences in life are going to happen, what is going to change, and how are we going to evolve as human beings. So I think Seviana is a little bit more for Julia, but to my understanding, that's how I felt about this particular song when she wrote it. So, but definitely when Julia has a chance and gets the video up, she would definitely explain a little bit more on Seviana, and here we go.
Mi Seviana, ¿dónde está? Mi Seviana, ¿dónde está?
Mi Seviana, ¿dónde está?
Ay, que te quiero.
Mi Seviana, ¿dónde está?
Ay, Dios mío, ¿dónde estará?
Mi Seviana, ¿dónde está?
¿Dónde están los barriles?
Mi Seviana, ¿dónde está?
Ahora vamos a empezar. Seviana, que te quiero. Ahora vamos a hablar. Que te busco y no te encuentro. Ven ahora ya bajar. Seviana, que yo quiero. Que tú ahora declarar. Seviana, mi amiga. Seviana, si ¿dónde estás? Seviana, mi querida. Ahora caminar. Ven que yo te quiero. Ahora voy a declarar este cuento que te hago de mi padre espiritual. Ay, que yo puedo ahora contigo hablar. Seviana, mi querida. Seviana, vamos a hablar. Ven y tráete la madama. Vamos a andar. Seviana, mi querida. En la bomba espiritual. Seviana, mi querida.
So that was just a quick example of, I guess, an original bomba. As Matthew was talking about it, it is definitely inspired by personal connections, very spiritual connections of mine and my own journey and discovery. So it's really important for us to highlight this for a couple of different reasons. One, because while bomba is certainly an expression that is several centuries old, it is very much a living tradition and it is very much a living expression in the here and now. And as practitioners of New York City, as second, third generation practitioners, it is our responsibility to continue expanding upon that platform, that fundamento, that repertoire by writing new songs and also by putting ourselves within the experiences, right? So you can see, hopefully by connecting to different bomba ensembles and their original repertoire, you can appreciate a little bit about, you know, those personal vignettes and what it is that we try to impart to add upon the stories and the legacies of our elders. And with that being said, I want to transition really quickly to Víctor Pablo, who is out on the city streets, so he can share a little bit about this next video, our next and last video that we want to show, that really kind of puts us in the here and now, quite literally, thinking about current socio-political and racial contexts of this country and of the world. Víctor, ¿puedes presentar la próxima canción, porfa, please?
Seguro que yes. Thank you, Julia. So we're here live in the street. Literally, there was a bus right next to me, so I have to find a better place to talk. So this next song is called Que Dolor Inmenso, which translates to What an Immense Pain. And I guess I should put it into context, which I didn't before. I myself, you know, like Mateo and Julia introduced themselves. They're second, third generation bomberos. I myself, I feel like I discovered bomba later on. I come from a family of musicians. My granddad was in a cuarteto tabú. My dad has his own group, La Sonora San Juanera, and that's where I was raised, playing Latin percussion, playing like salsa and playing all that stuff. I studied classical music and I went on this whole journey, and I didn't really full on discover and started really exploring into our bomba till I got here into the city, into New York City, with people like Mateo, people like Julia, people like Nico, people like Juango, like Los Pleneros de la 21, like Joseito, like Alex Lasalle. And you know what? It's funny because I met a lot of other percussionists in Puerto Rico, like Gutierrez-Rivera, and they always kept telling me, you know, they'd be like, did you get hip to bomba yet? Like, no, you know, I'm learning my marimba stuff. And they'd look at me and they'd be like, we'll talk. You'll know. And man, like that day came, you know, it definitely came, and bomba is magic, yo. Bomba is magic. So I feel like I'm still earning, you know, the right to call myself bombero, but I'm putting in my work and I'm learning, because I've seen with these guys and gals, you know, the kind of work and the kind of effort that it takes to, you know, to be a bombero and bombera and to live this culture and to, you know, push it forward. So without further ado, going into the title, I appreciate you guys including, I appreciate Julia and Mateo for your input with this song. This song came as a direct inspiration because of the situation that was happening with our country, living in New York City, living right here in Brooklyn. I remember the morning when the news about George Floyd's death came out, and I just wasn't the same. I watched that video without knowing what I was getting myself into, and I didn't really know what, you know, I was really hoping that it wouldn't get to that point, but I mean, well, we all know what happened. And in the middle of the pandemic, in the middle of not being able to go outside, just being, you know, cabin fever, all the uncertainty, no jobs, no anything, and all this stuff goes on. I'm sure that I wasn't the only one that was overwhelmed by this. You know, the whole nation like went up and, you know, it went up in arms and as a figure of speech in response to these atrocities and these things that need to change. And my first experience with our Puerto Rican music was with Plena. Was always as a music of protest. It was always going to protest for either my school in Puerto Rico, La Libre, was going to be taken over by a bank. So we did it like a plenazo in the front, and everybody was running around in circles, you know, letting themselves felt and letting themselves know. So music to me has always been the best vehicle for that, and especially our music. And that song just kind of came bubbling up after all the news, after all this, uh, overwhelming amount of information, of pictures, of issues, of situations, and the song came out, and I shared it with Juango, I shared it with Julia, I shared it with Mateo, just, as a humble offering, because like I said, I'm still working on my bombero wings, right? So it just came out, and I felt like sharing it with people I admire and I trust, and I got very great feedback. I got very, I felt that people were feeling whatever it is that I was feeling as well, and it felt cathartic, and it felt like a great opportunity to do something with it. So long story short, we ended up, it ended up turning into this bigger thing, and I ended up taking onto this mission of getting different bomberos from across the diaspora, from New York City, from Chicago, from California, from the DMV, from Puerto Rico too, from Loíza and from Rio Grande. So from Loíza and Rio Grande, we had Johncito and Carolina. We had Johncito Rivera, whose birthday was yesterday. Happy birthday, Johncito. We had Oscarito Noel. We had Nico in New York representing, con Rebecca. In coro, we had Ibeliz from the Chicago group, from La Escuelita Bombera de Corazón. Thank you so much, guys. We had the DMV crew with Lo Hijo Plena. Thank you. And if I'm missing some people, I'm terribly sorry. I love you, because I wanted to include everybody, but because the time was so pressing, we had to get things done. So, it was what it was, but I managed to get some really great videos and put together a video addressing the situation. And also we took the initiative of putting it on Bandcamp, and whatever little money or whatever money we made from that tune, we would directly donate to split half and half between two entities. One of them was a fund that was for helping people out who have been incarcerated because they are attending protests, specifically people who are not citizens, people who were being detained at protests and being sent to ICE camps because they were a protest, sort of weaponizing, that power that the entity has, the ICE has. And the other half of it was used to go to Colectivo Ile in Puerto Rico, which is a colectivo that does a lot of really great work on the island of anti-racial work. So they do a lot of workshops, and they also orient people from marginalized places and neighborhoods about their rights. Sometimes they help them legally. They do a lot of great work. And yeah, that's what came out. So actually, rhythm-wise, the song right now, how we recorded, I think it's Cuembe. When Nico and I recorded it, because Nico was the first drums that I recorded live, and when we got together, he like I didn't want it to be Cuembe, but it just came out. I couldn't remember the toque, how it went, so it just came out Cuembe. But when we got together, we figured out that it's actually Oyomula. It should be like but you'll hear, which is something cool to explore too. So. Anyway, without further ado, here's the song.
Qué dolor inmenso, qué dolor inmenso, qué dolor inmenso cuando matan mi negra y mi negro. Qué dolor inmenso, qué dolor inmenso, qué dolor inmenso cuando matan mi negra y mi negro. Puede ser tu mamá, puede ser tu abuelo, pueden ser tus hijos cuando matan mi negra y mi negro. Qué dolor inmenso, qué dolor inmenso, qué dolor inmenso cuando matan mi negra y mi negro. Por ahí viene el guardia, vamos a recogernos, se le ve en la cara las ganas de mi negra y mi negro. Qué dolor inmenso, qué dolor inmenso,
So no sé si Víctor se encuentra. Míralo ahí todavía. Thank you.
Estamos aquí,
Thank you
estamos
for
aquí.
sharing
Thank you guys for sharing. Thank you
the
guys.
history and the context of that. I know you have to go soon. We have a couple of questions, and we also are being mindful of time, so we'll probably go for another 6 minutes. I'm reading one from the Facebook feed just because I want to see Matthew's reaction to it. It says, as a Canadian dancer, I know how important it is to maintain the relationship between the drummer and dancer. We always compare it to being husband and wife. Is it the same for you? So, we don't attribute those types of roles in terms of the relationship exchange between the dancer and the drummer, although we do recognize that, Matthew, for example, is speaking onto my relationship with Matthew and how he interprets my dancing. It's very much in sync. He's also like my little brother, and we've known each other for many, many, many years. And that is, I think, the interpersonal relationship between the two people that are exchanging in that musical conversation and that movement conversation does allow for a certain being in sync to happen, right? And on the flip side of that, if it's the first time that you dance to a new drummer, or for as a drummer, if it's the first time that they're gonna mark the steps of a new dancer, that sense of kind of adrenaline comes up to see like, oh, let's see what kind of chemistry, right, or connection can happen. But we don't necessarily anticipate a husband and wife or brother and sister type of relationship or that kind of dynamic between a dancer and drummer. Victor did have to go, so he bids his farewell and thank you to everybody. I will try to drop into the stream the actual link to the YouTube video of that song so that you can appreciate just the combination of the different voices and talents that came together to make that song. And as well as allowing you to see the snapshot in the current moment in history that the concept of and the message of the song was trying to capture. There's a question here. Matthew says, how long have we been playing together?
Wow, like Julia said, over a decade. So imagine, I'm not gonna say ages, because we don't do that here. Sorry, guys. But yeah, imagine. Already, I started with Los Pleneros at 16. So, and I made 12 years already with Pleneros. And then Julia and I, like she said, this is like my older sister. She's known me since I was a baby. So, and then the rest is history. So imagine the chemistry is definitely there, but we're talking about at least more than 15 years of working together on stage and off stage. So definitely there's a lot of chemistry between Julia and myself. I compliment her, she compliments me. I know when she wants to do something and it doesn't come out, and I'll be like, oh, I got you, do it like this. And then when I need any other tips, she always helps me. So that's a relationship. This is not just, we're not friends, but we're also family all at the same time. So yes, many, many years, and still many more to come.
Que así sea, absolutely. There's a lot of love, and we also irk each other, but that's all, the family relationship and the family vibes here. I think we're going to take on one last question before we sign off for the evening. And this is pretty broad, right? And it's why do you continue your traditions? Why do we continue our traditions? And I think it'll probably be best to talk about it from a personal perspective, and as opposed to like, a specific group mission or something like that. And it kind of references something that I had mentioned earlier, right? Bomba, as well as Plena and other cultural expressions from all different countries, even though they're rooted in ancestral histories and practices, they're alive. They're in the here and now. And they're alive because we have to take it upon ourselves to keep walking that path, right? For us, it is important to connect and create that through line from what happened yesterday, the day before yesterday, eons ago, that are still alive and well within us, right? That are forming part of our DNA, that form part of why we think certain things, of why we do certain things. And sometimes we may not be able to articulate them explicitly, but they still live within us. So it is really important for us to, through a musical and cultural practice, channel all of that so that we can ensure not only that we are realizing ourselves as individuals, right? Because this is something that does help us grow and teach us really key characteristics and traits as individuals, as community members, as family members, as cultural leaders, but also to help the person that comes after us to take on that baton as well. So that's why we do this. We do it for that and for many other reasons, right? It's a lot of fun, bomba vida, right? But it is really critical to continue these expressions alive and to also ground them in the here and now and make sure that they, that folks that are kind of coming into this really see that this is deeply rooted in ancestral traditions, but it is also, relevant to our daily experiences.
Also, just to add on to what Julia was saying, also, it's just, this is our history. We make our history for the future and for the next generation that comes up. That's why also, most of you know, and some of you don't, that Julia and I, we were raised in these traditions. Julia by her dad, me by my grandfather, Bienvenido Ayala. So we were raised in these traditions, and it just became part of our everyday lives. And also it holds something really, really deep to us. Like Julia said, bomba is life, es vida. And that's what we want to show everybody, especially that the culture needs to be preserved and stay alive, especially for the future generation that comes next. And especially if a lot of you did tune in last week for Bon Plenazo, our hands are, they're in good hands, especially one of the younger groups, Los Bravitos de la Plena in Puerto Rico. They're doing a great job and they're going to continue. And that's in the Plena aspect. And there's so many other bomba groups in Puerto Rico of our generation and the younger generation that are coming up that's keeping this tradition alive. So this is our mission, just to move it forward and to preserve it, because we need to, because this is our life and this is part of our history. So.
All right, well, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you also for helping us navigate the technical waters of Zoom and Facebook Live. That's what happens cuando estamos en vivo de puro color. I will not be surprised that a song comes out of this experience, right? Capturing our moments with you all and with each other. Again, I want to thank Víctor Pablo. I want to thank Matthew. I want to thank Camilo Molina, as well as Juan Gerena, who were with us on that recording. And a shout out to Javier Reyes, who put together the video editing of that. Really important to note that that video was recorded in the Bronx at the Pregones Theater PRTT. That's on Walton Avenue off of 149th Street. It's one of our key cultural institutions for Puerto Rican expressions as well as Latinx expressions in New York City. So a big shout out and thank you to Pregones Theater. Thank you to CTMD for making this possible and for the invitation and for continuing to support and invest in the cultural communities of New York City that are many.